Her twin boys in car crash. Only match for bone marrow is the CEO who denied being their father. Mrs. Morales, I need you to understand the gravity of this situation. Both Mateo and Emilio need immediate bone marrow transplants. Without them, they won't survive the week. Camila's voice breaking. Then find a donor. Test me, test my family, test everyone. We've already run the emergency database search. There's only one compatible donor in the entire registry. Who? I'll pay anything, do anything. Tobias Meridian, CEO of Meridian Industries. The match is perfect, almost impossible odds, which suggests a close biological relationship. No, anyone else. There has to be someone else. Mrs. Morales, your sons don't have time for alternatives. This man appears to be their biological father, and he's their only chance. Her voice cracking with years of pain. He's not their father. He made that very clear in court 5 years ago. Tobias Meridian swore under oath that my children meant nothing to him. Have you ever had to face someone who destroyed your trust? Have you ever had to beg the person who hurt you most to save what you love most? Tonight, we're exploring a story about impossible choices and the lengths a mother will go to save her children. What happens when your children's lives depend on the man who publicly denied they were his? When justice and mercy collide in the most heartbreaking way possible. Camila thought the hardest part was raising twins alone, until their survival depended on the father who rejected them. Can love overcome legal battles? Can a father's heart awaken when faced with his children's mortality? Stay with me, because this story will challenge everything you believe about family, DNA, and what it truly means to be a parent. If stories about a mother's fierce love and the power of redemption move your soul, hit that like button now. And if you believe in second chances for those who fight for what's right, subscribe to Lux Love Chronicles with Mr. Wentworth for more stories that will restore your faith in justice. The October afternoon had been perfect, crisp autumn air, golden leaves dancing in the breeze, and the sound of 8-year-old laughter echoing from the backyard. Camila Morales stood at her kitchen window, watching her twin sons Mateo and Emilio rake leaves into enormous piles before diving into them with abandon. "Mama, can we have hot chocolate when we're done?" Mateo called out, his dark hair tousled with leaves, his face flushed with joy. "And marshmallows?" Emilio added hopefully, ever the practical one who never forgot to negotiate for extras. "Of course, my loves," she called back, her heart swelling with the simple contentment of Saturday afternoon with her boys. At 32, Camila had built a good life for them. Her small accounting practice was thriving. Their modest home in the suburbs was filled with love and laughter, and the twins were excelling in school despite, or perhaps because of, having only one parent who was completely devoted to them. She'd stopped waiting for their father to care years ago. "Mama, we're going to Miguel's house to show him our leaf fort," Mateo announced, referring to their neighbor and best friend who lived 2 houses down. "Be back before dark," she called, "and stay on the sidewalk." "We will," they chorused, grabbing their bikes from the garage. Camila watched them pedal down the quiet suburban street, their identical faces bright with excitement, their matching voices calling out to each other as they raced. They were everything to her, her world, her purpose, her greatest achievement. Twin boys who looked exactly like their father, though she'd long since stopped thinking about that painful resemblance. She was inside making their promised hot chocolate when her phone rang. "Mrs. Morales?" The voice was professional, controlled, but Camila immediately sensed something wrong. "This is Dr. Reina Voss from St. Mary's Hospital. Your sons have been in an accident." The mug slipped from Camila's hands, hot chocolate splattering across the kitchen floor as the world tilted sideways. "What kind of accident? Are they okay? Where are they?" A drunk driver ran a red light and hit their bicycles. "They're in critical condition, Mrs. Morales. You need to come immediately." The drive to the hospital passed in a blur of terror and desperate prayers. Camila's hands shook on the steering wheel as she navigated traffic that seemed to crawl when every second mattered. Her mind kept replaying their last words, "We'll be back before dark," as if she could somehow hold on to that promise and make it true. St. Mary's emergency room was a controlled chaos of medical personnel, beeping machines, and the quiet desperation of families in crisis. Camila rushed to the reception desk, her voice barely recognizable as her own. "Mateo and Emilio Morales, My sons were brought in from a bicycle accident. Mrs. Morales? A woman in scrubs approached, her expression gentle but serious. I'm Dr. Voss. We spoke on the phone. Where are my boys? Are they alive? Please tell me they're alive. They're alive, but their injuries are severe. Both boys suffered significant trauma, broken bones, internal bleeding, and most critically, damage to their bone marrow from the impact. Bone marrow? What does that mean? Dr. Voss guided her to a quiet consultation room, her manner compassionate but direct. The accident caused severe damage to their pelvic bones where bone marrow is produced. Without healthy bone marrow, their bodies can't make the blood cells they need to survive. But you can fix it, right? Surgery or medicine or something. Bone marrow transplant is their only option. And Mrs. Morales, time is critical. Without transplants within the next week, both boys will die. The words hit Camila like physical blows. Her children, her beautiful, laughing, leaf-jumping children, were dying. Then we do the transplants. Test me, test my family, test everyone we know. We've already begun testing, but finding a compatible donor is extremely difficult. The donor needs to be a very close genetic match. What are the chances? Dr. Voss hesitated. For siblings, about 25%. For parents, 50%. For unrelated donors, less than 1%. I'm their mother. Test me first. We're running your blood work now, but Mrs. Morales, we've also run an emergency search of the National Bone Marrow Registry. And we found one perfect match. The genetic compatibility is so strong it suggests a very close biological relationship. Hope flared in Camila's chest. Who? A relative I don't know about. Tobias Meridian. The name hit her like lightning. Tobias Meridian, the man who'd shared her bed and her dreams 9 years ago. The man who'd promised her forever and then disappeared when she needed him most. The man who'd stood in a courtroom 5 years ago and sworn under oath that Mateo and Emilio were not his children. No, the word escaped her lips before she could stop it. Anyone else. There has to be someone else. Mrs. Morales, I understand this is overwhelming, but your sons don't have time for alternatives. Mr. Meridian's genetic markers indicate he's almost certainly their biological father. He's not their father, Camila said, her voice rising with years of suppressed pain. He made that very clear when he denied paternity and fought me in court. DNA doesn't lie, Mrs. Morales. The bone marrow registry requires extensive genetic testing. This level of compatibility is virtually impossible unless there's a parent-child relationship. Camila sank into a chair, the weight of impossible choices crushing down on her. Contact the man who'd publicly humiliated her? Beg for help from someone who'd sworn her children meant nothing to him? There's something else you need to know, Dr. Voss continued gently. Even if Mr. Meridian agrees to donate, the procedure carries risks for him. Bone marrow donation requires surgery, anesthesia, significant recovery time. And if he refuses? Then we keep searching, but Mrs. Morales, finding another donor could take months we don't have. Can I see them? Can I see my boys? Of course. But I need to prepare you. They're heavily sedated, connected to multiple machines. It can be overwhelming. Nothing could have prepared Camila for the sight of her sons in the pediatric ICU. Mateo and Emilio lay pale and still, their small bodies dwarfed by hospital beds, tubes and wires connecting them to machines that monitored their failing systems. The boys who'd been racing their bikes just hours ago now fought for every breath. Mama's here, she whispered, taking their small hands in hers. Mama's here, and everything's going to be okay. But looking at their faces, faces that bore such a striking resemblance to Tobias Meridian, she wondered if she was making a promise she couldn't keep. That night, alone in the hospital family lounge, Camila forced herself to remember the last time she'd seen Tobias. The courtroom had been sterile and cold, filled with lawyers and legal documents that reduced her children to a financial liability he was trying to avoid. 9 years ago, she'd been a junior accountant at a firm contracted by Meridian Industries. Tobias had been the young, ambitious executive being groomed to take over his family's company. Their relationship had been a secret, she, the middle-class girl from the wrong side of town, and he, the heir to a corporate dynasty. For 6 months, it had felt like a fairy tale. He'd been charming, intelligent, passionate about his work and seemingly about her. He talked about changing the way business was done, about building something meaningful together. "I want to take you away from all this," he'd said one night as they lay in bed in his penthouse apartment. "Somewhere we don't have to hide, where we can just be us." "And where would that be?" she'd asked, tracing patterns on his chest. "Anywhere. Everywhere. I want to show you the world, Camila." She believed him. God help her, she believed every word. When she discovered she was pregnant, she'd been terrified but also hopeful. Maybe this was their chance to build something real, to step out of the shadows and create a life together. Pregnant. His face had gone completely blank when she'd told him. "How is that possible?" "We were careful." "Careful isn't perfect." "And Tobias, I know this is unexpected, but maybe it's a sign. Maybe this is our chance to..." "Our chance to what?" "Destroy everything I've worked for." The words had cut deeper than any blade. "I thought you loved me." "Love doesn't pay bills, Camila. Love doesn't run a company or honor family obligations." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying this is impossible timing. I'm about to take over as CEO. The board, my family, the stockholders, they're all watching every move I make. And I'm an embarrassment. You're a complication I can't afford." He tried to give her money. Money for taking care of the problem, as he'd so delicately put it. When she'd refused, when she'd made it clear she was keeping the baby, he'd simply disappeared from her life. The twins had been born healthy and beautiful, with their father's dark eyes and stubborn chin. For 4 years, Camila had raised them alone, building a life filled with love, if not luxury. Then Tobias had decided to run for city council, a stepping stone to bigger political ambitions. His campaign had been built on family values and corporate responsibility. That's when his team had discovered the existence of Matteo and Emilio. Instead of acknowledging them, he'd chosen to destroy them legally. The lawsuit had been brutal. Tobias's lawyers had painted her as a gold digger, a woman trying to trap a successful man with false paternity claims. They'd demanded DNA tests, financial records, character witnesses. They dissected her life in public, questioned her morals, suggested she'd slept with multiple men, and couldn't be sure of the father's identity. Through it all, Tobias had sat silent in his expensive suits, his face a mask of cold professionalism, never once looking at the photographs of the children who looked exactly like him. The DNA test had been conclusive, 99.9% probability of paternity. But Tobias's lawyers had found a technicality, a problem with the chain of custody that made the results inadmissible in court. Mr. Meridian categorically denies any paternal relationship with these children, his lawyer had stated in open court. Furthermore, he has never had any intimate relationship with Miss Morales that would result in pregnancy. The lie had been delivered with such conviction that Camila had actually gasped aloud. 6 months of love reduced to a legal fiction. 2 beautiful children erased from their father's existence with a few coldly spoken words. The judge had dismissed her case. Without admissible DNA evidence, she had no legal recourse. Tobias had walked away scot-free, his reputation intact, his political ambitions unharmed. "You'll never see a penny from me," he'd said to her outside the courthouse, his voice low and threatening. "And if you ever try to contact me again, I'll destroy you completely." That had been 5 years ago. 5 years during which she'd rebuilt her life, her confidence, and her faith in her ability to provide everything her sons needed. 5 years during which she'd convinced herself that Matteo and Emilio were better off without a father who could reject them so completely. Now, sitting in this hospital chair, watching her children fight for their lives, she faced an impossible choice. Let her pride condemn her sons to death, or humble herself before the man who'd publicly humiliated her family. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Voss. "Your blood work came back. You're not a compatible donor. Mr. Meridian remains their only chance." Camila closed her eyes, feeling the weight of motherhood in its purest, most desperate form. Tomorrow, she would have to do the hardest thing she'd ever done in her life. Tomorrow, she would have to beg Tobias Meridian to save the children he'd sworn weren't his. The Meridian Industries tower dominated the downtown skyline like a glass and steel monument to corporate power. 37 floors of gleaming success that touched the clouds while casting long shadows over the streets below. Camila had never been inside the building. During their relationship, Tobias had always come to her small apartment, maintaining the carefully constructed boundaries between his public and private lives. Now, standing on the marble steps at 8 a.m. sharp, she felt like David approaching Goliath's fortress, armed with nothing but desperation and a mother's love. The lobby was an exercise in intimidation, soaring ceilings, abstract art that probably cost more than her house, and a reception desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of mahogany. Security guards in expensive suits watched her approach with the practiced eyes of men trained to identify threats. "I need to see Tobias Meridian," she told the receptionist, a polished woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a business magazine. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but Mr. Meridian's schedule is completely booked for the next 3 months. If you'd like to request a meeting, I can provide you with the appropriate forms." "This is an emergency. It's about his children." The receptionist's expression didn't change, but Camila caught the slight pause in her typing. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Meridian doesn't have any children. You must be mistaken." "I'm not mistaken. My name is Camila Morales, and I need to speak with him about Mateo and Emilio. They're in the hospital, and they're dying." "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "No." Camila's voice carried a strength she didn't know she possessed. "I'm not leaving until I speak with him. My sons need a bone marrow donor, and he's the only match." Security was already moving toward her when the elevator doors opened and Tobias Meridian stepped into the lobby. 9 years had been kind to him. His dark hair was touched with silver at the temples now, his face more angular with authority and success. He wore a suit that probably cost more than she made in a month, and carried himself with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to having the world bend to his will. He saw her immediately, their eyes locking across the vast lobby in a moment that felt suspended in time. She watched recognition dawn on his face, followed quickly by something that might have been panic. "Mr. Meridian," the security guard began, "this woman is claiming." "It's fine," Tobias said quietly, never taking his eyes off Camila. "I'll handle this." He approached her slowly, like someone approaching a dangerous animal, his expression carefully neutral. "Camila, this is unexpected." "Hello, Tobias." She was proud that her voice remained steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. "We need to talk. I don't think we have anything to discuss. The courts settled that matter years ago. The courts were wrong, and you know it. I know nothing of the sort." But his eyes flickered with something, guilt, fear, that suggested otherwise. "Mateo and Emilio are in the hospital. They were in a car accident, and they need bone marrow transplants to survive." "I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't see how this concerns me. You're their only compatible donor. The only one in the entire national registry." Tobias went very still. "That's impossible. DNA doesn't lie, Tobias. Your genetic markers are a perfect match for my sons. They're sons. The children you denied in court. I think you should leave. I think you should listen." Camila stepped closer, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "They're 8 years old. 8 years old, and they're dying, and you're the only person in the world who can save them. Even if what you're saying is true, it is true. I can't help you. Any acknowledgement of paternity would expose me to legal liability, child support, public scandal. My lawyers would never allow it." "Your lawyers?" Camila felt years of rage bubbling to the surface. "Your lawyers allowed you to commit perjury 5 years ago. Your lawyers helped you abandon your children. Are you really going to let your lawyers sentence them to death now? Keep your voice down. Why? Afraid your employees might learn that the great Tobias Meridian has children he's never met? That he's letting them die to protect his reputation? You don't understand the complexities. I understand that Mateo asked me yesterday if he was going to die." Her voice broke on the words. "I understand that Emilio is afraid to fall asleep because he thinks he might not wake up. I understand that you are the only person who can save them, and you're standing here talking about lawyers and liability." Tobias ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she remembered from their intimate moments, when he was struggling with difficult decisions. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Undergo donor testing. If you're a match, which we both know you are, donate bone marrow to save their lives. And after that, what then? Do you expect me to suddenly become their father? I expect you to let them live long enough to have a future, whatever that might look like." Tobias was quiet for a long moment, studying her face as if trying to read some hidden message there. "I need time to think about this." To consult with my legal team. Time is the one thing we don't have. They need surgery within the week, or they die. Then I guess you'd better hope I make the right decision. He turned to walk away, and Camila felt desperation claw at her throat. Tobias, wait. He stopped, but didn't turn around. Please. I'm begging you. I know you hate me. I know you wish we'd never met. But please don't punish them for my mistakes. Your mistakes. He turned back, his face a mask of cold control. You think this is about punishing anyone? Isn't it? You've denied them their whole lives. Are you really going to deny them their chance to live? I'll be in touch, he said finally, and walked away, leaving Camila standing alone in the marble lobby, surrounded by strangers and drowning in fear for her children's lives. Imagine having to humble yourself before someone who publicly humiliated you to save your children's lives. If Camila's courage is inspiring you right now, show some love with a like, and tell me in the comments about a time you had to choose your children over your pride. That afternoon, Camila sat in the hospital cafeteria, staring at a cup of coffee that had long since grown cold. She'd been waiting for 3 hours since leaving Meridian Industries, hoping against hope that Tobias would call, that some vestige of humanity remained in the man she'd once loved. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello, Mrs. Morales? This is Patricia Hendricks, Mr. Meridian's legal counsel. We need to discuss the situation regarding your sons. Camila's heart raced. Is he going to help them? That depends on several factors. We need to meet immediately to discuss terms. Terms? We're talking about children's lives, not a business deal. Everything is a business deal, Mrs. Morales. Meridian Industries conference room, 1 hour. Come alone. The line went dead, leaving Camila staring at her phone in disbelief. Even in this, even when children were dying, it came down to lawyers and negotiations. The Meridian Industries conference room was designed to intimidate, a massive mahogany table surrounded by leather chairs that had probably cost more than most people's cars. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a commanding view of the city, while oil paintings of previous company presidents watched from the walls like silent judges. Tobias sat at the head of the table, flanked by 3 lawyers in identical dark suits. He'd changed from his morning attire into something even more formal, as if armor against the emotions of their earlier encounter. Mrs. Morales, Patricia Hendricks, stood as Camila entered. She was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Thank you for coming. I didn't realize I had a choice. You always have a choice. The question is whether you're willing to make the right one for your children. Camila took the seat across from Tobias, noting how he avoided her eyes. What do you want? Mr. Meridian is prepared to consider undergoing donor testing. Patricia began. But there are conditions. Conditions? First, you will sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. Nothing about Mr. Meridian's involvement in this matter can ever be made public. You want me to hide the fact that he saved his children's lives. We want you to hide any suggestion that they are his children at all. Another lawyer interjected. The donation will be anonymous, processed through a third-party medical foundation. Second, Patricia continued, you will relinquish any and all claims to financial support, past, present, or future. No child support, no medical expenses beyond this immediate crisis, no inheritance rights. You're asking me to sell my children's futures. We're asking you to accept reality. Mr. Meridian has no legal obligation to these children. Any assistance he provides is purely charitable. Camila looked directly at Tobias for the first time since entering the room. Is this really what you want? To save their lives, but deny their existence? I want to minimize the damage to all parties involved, he replied, his voice carefully controlled. All parties? What about Mateo and Emilio? What about their right to know their father? They'll be alive, Patricia said coldly. That should be enough. Should it? Should they grow up wondering why their father saved them but never claimed them? Should they think they weren't worth loving, just worth a medical procedure? That's not Mr. Meridian's responsibility. Like hell it isn't. Camila slammed her hand on the table, her composure finally cracking. Those boys have his eyes, his smile, his stubborn streak. They're brilliant and funny and kind, and they deserve better than a father who treats them like a legal liability. Mrs. Morales, Tobias spoke quietly. You need to understand my position. Your position? You're sitting in a boardroom negotiating over your children's lives like they're a corporate merger. I'm trying to do the right thing while protecting everything I've built. And what have you built, Tobias? Really? A company? Money? A reputation built on lies. She leaned forward, her voice intense with years of suppressed pain. You have 2 sons who are brilliant and brave and everything you could ever want in children, and you've never even spoken to them. That was your choice. You could have contacted me when they were born. I tried. I called your office dozens of times. Your secretary said you were unavailable. When I finally got through, you told me never to contact you again. I was trying to protect my career. You were protecting your cowardice. The words exploded out of her. You were 27 years old, Tobias, not 17. You were a grown man who chose ambition over responsibility. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of air conditioning and the distant sounds of traffic far below. Mrs. Morales, Patricia said eventually, do you want our help or not? Camila closed her eyes, seeing Mateo and Emilio's faces in her mind, pale and still in their hospital beds, fighting for every breath while she sat in this corporate cathedral arguing over paperwork. I want my sons to live. Then sign the agreements. And if I refuse, then Mr. Meridian walks away, and you explain to your children why you chose pride over their survival. The papers were placed in front of her, dozens of pages of legal language designed to erase her children from their father's life even as he saved that life. Camila picked up the pen, her hand trembling with rage and desperation. You know what the worst part is? She said, looking directly at Tobias. They ask about you sometimes. Mateo especially. He sees other kids with their fathers and wonders why he doesn't have one. Tobias's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I tell him that sometimes people aren't ready to be parents, that it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with him. But he's 8 years old, Tobias. He thinks it's his fault that his daddy doesn't love him. Mrs. Morales, Patricia began. Shut up, Camila said without taking her eyes off Tobias. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to him. She leaned across the table. Emilio draws pictures of families. Always the same picture, a mama, 2 boys, and an empty space where the daddy should be. He colors around it, like he's saving the space for someone who might show up. Sign the papers, Camila. Tobias's voice was hoarse. Is that all you have to say? After I tell you that your sons lie awake at night wondering why they're not enough to make someone love them? Sign the papers. She did, her signature feeling like a betrayal of everything she'd fought for, everything she'd hoped for her boys. When she finished, Patricia efficiently gathered the documents. Mr. Meridian will undergo donor testing tomorrow morning. If he's confirmed as a match, the procedure will be scheduled immediately. And after that, you never contact Mr. Meridian again. You never speak his name to your children. As far as the world is concerned, they were saved by an anonymous donor who wanted nothing in return. Camila stood, her legs unsteady. Just one more thing. What? When you're lying in that hospital bed, when they're extracting your bone marrow to save Mateo and Emilio's lives, remember that you're not doing this for me. You're not doing it for your lawyers, or your reputation, or your company. She met Tobias's eyes one final time. You're doing it because deep down, in whatever piece of your soul you haven't sold yet, you know they're your sons. And you know they deserve to live. She walked out, leaving behind the man she'd once loved and the future she'd once dreamed of, carrying nothing but a promise that her children might survive to hate her for the choices she'd made. That night, Camila sat beside Mateo's hospital bed, holding his small hand while he slept. The machines monitoring his vital signs beeped steadily, a mechanical lullaby that had become the soundtrack of her worst nightmare. Mama. Emilio's voice drifted from the next bed, weak but alert. Yes, baby. Are we going to die? The question hit her like a physical blow. No, sweetheart. You're going to get better. How do you know? Because we found someone who can help you. Someone who's going to give you some of their bone marrow so your bodies can make healthy blood again. Is it someone we know? Camila's throat tightened. No, baby. It's someone who wants to help children like you, but they want to stay anonymous. Anonymous means secret, right? That's right. Why do they want to stay secret? Because he's ashamed of you, her heart screamed. Because he's more concerned with his reputation than his children. Some people just prefer to help quietly, without anyone knowing. That's nice of them. Emilio was quiet for a moment. Mama, if we get better, will we ever meet our daddy? The question she'd been dreading. asked with the innocent hope of a child who still believed in happy endings. I don't know, Emilio. Maybe someday. I hope so. I bet he's really nice. I bet he'd like us if he met us. Tears streamed down Camila's face as she listened to her son's faith in a father who had just signed papers ensuring they would never know each other. I bet he would too, baby. I bet he would love you very much. At least that part, she thought, might actually be true. If Tobias could spend 5 minutes with Matteo and Emilio, really see them, talk to them, understand the remarkable little people they were, he couldn't possibly walk away again. But he would never get that chance. She'd signed away their future to secure their present, traded their father for their lives. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Voss. Mr. Meridian confirmed as perfect match. Surgery scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. Both boys prepped and ready. Relief flooded through her so powerfully she felt dizzy. Her sons would live. Whatever else happened, whatever prices were paid, Matteo and Emilio would have a chance at life. Good news. Dr. Voss appeared in the doorway, making her evening rounds. The best news. Thank you for finding him. Just doing my job. Though I have to say, I've never seen genetic compatibility quite this strong. Mr. Meridian must be very closely related to the boys. Yes, Camila said quietly. Very closely related. Will he be coming to visit before the procedure? Many donors like to meet the recipients, especially children. No, he's requested complete anonymity. Dr. Voss frowned. That's unusual for family donors. Most relatives want to be involved in the recovery process. Mr. Meridian isn't most people. Well, his motivations don't matter as much as his bone marrow. This procedure is going to save both boys completely. They'll be able to live normal, healthy lives. Normal, healthy lives without their father. Lives built on the foundation of his sacrifice, but not his love. Dr. Voss, what happens during the donation process? How much will it hurt him? It's a significant procedure. General anesthesia, surgical extraction from the pelvic bone, considerable pain during recovery. Most donors are off work for a week, experiencing discomfort for several weeks after that. And he's doing this for children he's never met. According to his paperwork, yes, it's not unheard of, but it is remarkably generous. Generous. If only the doctor knew the truth, that Tobias wasn't being generous. He was being legally coerced into saving children he refused to acknowledge. That his donation came with contracts and conditions, and the guarantee that he would never have to see the results of his sacrifice. After Dr. Voss left, Camila settled into the uncomfortable chair between her sons' beds, watching them sleep and wondering what tomorrow would bring. In 12 hours, Tobias would undergo surgery to save their lives. The man who denied their existence would literally give part of himself to ensure their survival. And then he would walk away forever, leaving them to grow up knowing they'd been saved by a stranger's kindness rather than a father's love. She closed her eyes and prayed that someday, somehow, her boys would understand that she'd made the only choice she could. That love sometimes looked like sacrifice, and sometimes the greatest sacrifice was swallowing your pride to save the people who mattered most. Tomorrow, if everything went right, Matteo and Emilio would take their first steps toward a healthy future. It wouldn't be the future she'd dreamed of, one with a father who claimed them and loved them and showed up for their school plays and soccer games. But it would be a future, and sometimes that had to be enough. The morning of the surgery dawned gray and cold, matching the storm of emotions churning inside Tobias Meridian as he sat in the preoperative room at St. Mary's Hospital. He'd arrived at 6 a.m. for the bone marrow donation procedure, having spent a sleepless night staring at the ceiling of his penthouse, wrestling with feelings he'd buried for 9 years. Mr. Meridian? A nurse appeared at his bedside, clipboard in hand. I'm Janet, and I'll be assisting with your procedure today. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to make either the biggest mistake or the most important decision of my life. The honesty of his answer surprised them both. Janet studied his face with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen hundreds of patients face difficult procedures. Bone marrow donation is incredibly generous. The recipients must mean a great deal to you. Tobias was quiet for a moment, thinking of 2 boys he'd never met, but who carried his DNA, his eyes, his blood. They mean everything to someone I once cared about very much. That's beautiful. Are you nervous about the procedure? I'm terrified, he admitted. But not of the surgery. What then? Of what comes after? Dr. Voss entered, her manner professional but warm. "Good morning, Mr. Meridian. Thank you for doing this. I want you to know that your donation is going to save two remarkable little boys." "Tell me about them." The words slipped out before he could stop them. "The recipients. I can't share identifying information, but I can tell you they're 8-year-old twins. Identical boys who are incredibly brave, very intelligent, and absolutely devoted to each other and their mother. Their mother she's raising them alone. She is. And she's extraordinary. The kind of mother who would move mountains for her children." Dr. Voss prepared his four. "The boys have been asking about their anonymous donor. They want to thank you somehow." Tobias felt something twist in his chest. "What did you tell them?" "That their donor is someone very special who wants children to be healthy and happy. They said they hope you know how grateful they are." "Dr. Voss, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "The genetic match, how strong is it really?" "Stronger than I've ever seen between unrelated individuals. The compatibility is so perfect it's almost like they're your own children." "They are my own children," his heart screamed, but he only nodded. That's good. That means the transplant will be successful. The success rate with this level of compatibility is essentially 100%. Those boys are going to live full, healthy lives because of what you're doing today." As the anesthesia began to take effect, Tobias's last conscious thought was a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. Let them be okay. Let them grow up strong and happy. Let them never know their father was too much of a coward to claim them. While Tobias underwent surgery, Camila sat in the family waiting room with Matteo and Emilio, who had been prepped for their procedures. Both boys were alert but subdued, understanding the gravity of what was happening even if they couldn't fully comprehend the medical complexities. "Mama, does it hurt to give bone marrow?" Matteo asked, his dark eyes, so much like his father's, filled with concern. "I think it does hurt a little, sweetheart. That's why what this person is doing for you is so special. I wish we could meet them," Emilio said thoughtfully. "I want to say thank you. Maybe someday you will." The lie came easily, even as it broke her heart. "Right now, let's focus on getting you both healthy." "Will we still be the same after the surgery?" Matteo worried. "Will we still be twins?" "Of course you'll still be twins. This is just going to make your bodies better at making healthy blood. So we'll have some of the donor's blood in us?" Emilio asked with scientific curiosity that reminded Camila painfully of Tobias. "In a way, yes. Their bone marrow will help your bodies make new, healthy blood cells. That means we'll be connected to them forever," Matteo said with the simple logic of childhood. "Like family. Closer than you know," Camila thought, fighting back tears. "Like family." Dr. Voss appeared with the surgical team. "Are my brave boys ready?" "Ready." Both boys said simultaneously, their courage humbling every adult in the room. "The donor is out of surgery and doing well," Dr. Voss told Camila quietly as they prepared to take the boys to the operating room. "The extraction was successful, and we have everything we need for both transplants." "How is he?" "The donor. Resting comfortably. It was a significant procedure, but he came through beautifully." Camila watched her sons disappear through the surgical doors, their small hands waving goodbye with the fearless optimism that only children possessed. Somewhere in this same hospital, the man who'd given them life was now literally giving them life again, his bone marrow about to flow through their veins and heal their broken bodies. The irony wasn't lost on her. Tobias had spent years denying any connection to these boys, and now his DNA would become part of theirs in the most fundamental way possible. 8 hours later, both surgeries were complete. Matteo and Emilio lay in the pediatric recovery ward, their small bodies finally free of the machines that had sustained them, their new bone marrow already beginning the process of creating healthy blood cells. "The procedures were perfect," Dr. Voss announced to Camila. "Better than perfect, actually. Their bodies are accepting the donor marrow like it was meant to be there." "When will we know for sure that it worked?" "We'll monitor them closely for the next few weeks, but all signs point to complete success. These boys are going to make full recoveries." Relief flooded through Camila so powerfully she had to sit down. Her children would live. Whatever sacrifices had been made, whatever prices paid, Matteo and Emilio would grow up, go to school, play soccer, fall in love, have children of their own. The donor, she found herself asking, how is he? Recovering well. The bone marrow extraction was extensive, so he'll be uncomfortable for several days, but there were no complications. Does he want any updates on how the boys are doing? Dr. Voss hesitated. Actually, that's unusual. Most donors, especially family donors, want to be kept informed about the recipient's progress. Mr. Meridian specifically requested no contact or updates. No contact at all. His instructions were very clear. Anonymous donation, no follow-up, no information about outcomes. So even in saving their lives, Tobias was walking away. He would give his bone marrow but not his heart, his DNA but not his name, his blood but not his love. Mama, Mateo's weak voice called from his bed. Did it work? Camila rushed to his side, taking his small hand in hers. It worked perfectly, baby. You and Emilio are going to be completely healthy. Really? Emilio asked from the next bed, his voice stronger than his brother's. Really? Dr. Voss says you're both going to make full recoveries. Can we thank the donor now? Mateo asked hopefully. They want to stay anonymous, sweetheart, but I think they know how grateful we are. I'm going to write them a letter anyway, Emilio declared with determination. Even if they never read it, I want to write it. That's a beautiful idea. What should we say? Mateo wondered. Whatever's in your hearts. 3 floors up, Tobias lay in his private recovery room, staring out the window at the city skyline he'd spent his life conquering. The surgery had gone well, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional turmoil raging inside him. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from Patricia and his other lawyers, reminders about maintaining distance, protecting legal interests, preserving his reputation. But for the first time in his adult life, Tobias found himself not caring about any of it. Somewhere in this hospital were 2 boys, his boys, recovering from surgery, their bodies healing with his bone marrow, their futures secured by his sacrifice. And he would never know their voices, their laughter, their dreams, their fears. A soft knock interrupted his brooding. Mr. Meridian? A young nurse entered with a cheerful smile. I'm here to check your vitals. How are they doing? He asked before he could stop himself. The recipients. The boys who received my donation. The nurse's face lit up. Oh, they're doing wonderfully. The transplants were perfect. Those little boys are going to be completely healthy. Little boys. Twins, 8 years old. They're the sweetest children you could imagine. They've been asking everyone about their anonymous donor, wanting to make sure you know how grateful they are. Tobias felt his chest tighten. What are they like? Well, I probably shouldn't share too much, but they're remarkable. One of them, Mateo, I think, is incredibly brave. He's been taking care of his brother even though he's been sicker. And Emilio is so thoughtful, always worrying about whether other people are okay. Mateo and Emilio. Their names hit him like physical blows. He'd never known what Camila had called them, had never asked, had never cared enough to find out. Now, hearing their names spoken with such affection by a stranger, he felt something crack open inside his chest. They sound special. They are. And their mother, she's incredible. I've never seen a mother fight so hard for her children. She's been here every day for weeks, never leaving their side, advocating for every treatment, researching every option. The nurse finished checking his 4. You saved a very special family today, Mr. Meridian. After she left, Tobias lay in the dark, their names echoing in his mind. Mateo and Emilio, his sons. Children who carried his DNA and now his bone marrow. Children who were grateful to a stranger for saving their lives, never knowing their savior was the father who denied their existence. He thought about the nurse's words, Mateo taking care of his brother, Emilio worrying about others. What kind of boys were they? Did they love sports or books or building things? Were they funny? Were they kind? Did they look like him? Or had they inherited Camila's gentler features? The questions tortured him through the long night, along with the growing realization that he'd made the biggest mistake of his life 9 years ago when he'd walked away from Camila and the possibility of the family they could have built together. This is what redemption looks like, a man willing to give his very blood to save the children he once denied. If this transformation is touching your heart, hit that subscribe button and share this story with someone who needs to remember that it's never too late to do what's right. 2 days after the surgery, against all legal advice and explicit contractual obligations, Tobias found himself walking through the corridors of the pediatric ward. He told himself he just wanted to see that they were okay, that he had no intention of making contact, that he would observe from a distance and then leave forever. He found their room easily, room 314, where soft voices and gentle laughter drifted into the hallway. Through the partially open door, he caught his first glimpse of Matteo and Emilio. They were sitting up in their beds, coloring in books while Camila read to them from a chapter book. Both boys had his dark hair and eyes, but their faces carried Camila's warmth and expressiveness. Even recovering from major surgery, they radiated the kind of joy and resilience that could only come from being deeply loved. "Mama, do you think our donor has kids?" Matteo asked, looking up from his coloring. "I don't know, sweetheart." "What?" "Because if they do, those kids are really lucky. Their parent is a hero." "What makes you say that?" "They saved our lives," Emilio said matter-of-factly. "That's what heroes do." "You know what I think?" Camila said softly. "I think our donor is someone who understands how precious children are, and wanted to make sure you two get to grow up and do all the amazing things you're going to do." "Like what?" Matteo asked. "Like become doctors or teachers or astronauts or anything else you dream of. Like having families of your own someday. Like making the world better just by being in it." Tobias felt tears he hadn't shed in years burning behind his eyes. These were his children, intelligent, thoughtful, loving children who saw goodness in a stranger's sacrifice, who found hope in the darkest circumstances, who had somehow grown into remarkable human beings despite his absence. "I hope we meet them someday," Emilio said wistfully. "I want to show them my drawings and tell them about the book I'm writing." "You're writing a book?" Camila asked with surprised delight. "It's about a boy who gets sick, but then a mysterious hero saves him. Except in my story, the hero stays and becomes the boy's friend." The innocent words cut through Tobias like a blade. In his son's imagination, heroes didn't walk away after saving the day. They stayed. They became part of the story. They became part of the family. "That sounds like a wonderful book, sweetheart. Maybe when I'm done, we can send it to our donor. As a thank you present." "That's a beautiful idea." Tobias backed away from the door, overwhelmed by emotions he wasn't equipped to handle. These weren't just the children he'd denied. They were extraordinary human beings with thoughts and dreams and talents he'd never know. They were writing books and making art, and seeing the world with the kind of optimism that came from being raised by a mother who loved them unconditionally. He made it to the elevator before the full weight of his choices hit him. For 9 years, he'd convinced himself that walking away had been the right decision, that Camila and her children were better off without him. Now, seeing the boys, his boys, he realized the truth. They weren't better off without him. They were incredible despite being without him. Camila had raised them to be kind, intelligent, hopeful children in spite of having to do it alone. They had become everything a father could want his children to be, and he had contributed nothing but DNA and, finally, bone marrow. The elevator doors opened to reveal Camila herself, carrying coffee and looking exhausted but hopeful. They stared at each other in shock, the years collapsing between them. "Tobias? What are you doing here?" I wanted to make sure they were okay. "You're not supposed to be here. The contract. Screw the contract." The words came out with surprising vehemence. "I just saw them, Camila. I saw our sons. They're not your sons. You made that very clear. I was wrong." The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. "I was wrong about everything. You're 2 days and a bone marrow donation too late for that realization." Is it too late?" Camila studied his face, searching for sincerity or manipulation, hope or calculation. "What are you asking me, Tobias?" "I'm asking if there's any chance, any possibility, that I could be part of their lives. That I could try to be the father they deserve. The father they deserve." Her voice was sharp with years of pain. The father they deserved showed up 8 years ago. The father they deserved didn't deny their existence in court. The father they deserved didn't make their mother sign contracts to ensure he'd never have to see them. "You're right. I failed them. I failed you. I failed myself." He leaned against the elevator wall, suddenly exhausted. "But Camila, I just watched Matteo and Emilio for 10 minutes, and in that time, I learned more about what matters in life than I have in 35 years. And what did you learn? That they're extraordinary. That you raised them to be kind and hopeful and brilliant. That they see their anonymous donor as a hero when the truth is, they're the heroes for surviving, for thriving, for becoming amazing human beings despite having a father who was too much of a coward to claim them. Camila was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "They ask about you sometimes," she said finally. "Not you specifically, but their father. Mateo especially. He wants to know if you're tall like him, if you like the same books, if you would be proud of his soccer skills." "What do you tell him?" "I tell him that his father would be incredibly proud of him if he knew him. Because despite everything you've done, despite all the pain you've caused, those boys are the best parts of both of us." "Can I meet them?" "Officially, I mean. As their father, not as an anonymous donor. That's not your decision to make anymore. It's theirs." "What do you mean?" "I mean that Mateo and Emilio have lived 8 years without a father. They've built their identities, their security, their understanding of family around the reality that it's just the three of us. If you want to be part of their lives now, you don't get to decide how that happens. They do. And if they don't want to meet me, then you respect that decision and walk away. For real this time. No lawyers, no contracts, no conditions. You just disappear and let them live their lives. And if they do want to meet me, then you show up. Every day, for the rest of their lives. You don't get to be a weekend father or a holiday father or a convenient father. You show up for soccer games and parent-teacher conferences and middle-of-the-night fevers and teenage heartbreak and college graduations and weddings and grandchildren. The weight of what she was offering, what she was demanding, settled over him. It wasn't a chance to dabble in fatherhood. It was a commitment to completely reshape his life around 2 children he'd barely met. "I want that," he said quietly. "I want all of that. Wanting it and doing it are different things, Tobias. You wanted me once too, until it became inconvenient. This is different." "How?" "Because I know what I'm losing now. 8 years ago, I was losing a possibility. Now I know exactly what I'm losing. 2 incredible boys who write books and worry about other people and see heroes in strangers. I can't lose them again, Camila. I won't survive it." She studied his face for a long moment, then sighed. "I'll talk to them. I'll tell them about their father, the real story, all of it. The good parts and the terrible parts. And then I'll let them decide if they want to meet you. When they're strong enough to handle whatever emotional upheaval this is going to cause. When the doctors clear them to go home. When I figure out how to explain to 2 8-year-olds that their anonymous hero is actually the father who never wanted them." "I did want them," he said urgently. "I was just too scared and selfish to know it." "Then you better hope they're more forgiving than their mother has learned to be." A week later, Mateo and Emilio were discharged from the hospital with clean bills of health and instructions to take it easy for another month. Their bone marrow was producing healthy blood cells at an optimal rate, and their energy levels were returning to normal. Camila had spent the week wrestling with how to tell them about Tobias, how to explain the complexities of adult emotions and legal battles to children who saw the world in terms of heroes and villains, love and fairness. She'd finally decided on honesty, even if it was complicated. "Boys, I need to tell you something important about your donor. About the person who saved your lives." They were in their living room, both boys curled up on the couch with books, looking healthier than they had in months. "What about them?" Mateo asked, looking up from his adventure novel. "It wasn't a stranger who donated the bone marrow. It was someone we know. Someone who should have been part of your lives from the beginning." "Who?" Emilio asked, his scientific mind already working through possibilities. "Your father." The silence that followed was profound. Both boys stared at her with wide eyes, processing information that changed everything they thought they knew about their family. "Our father," Mateo whispered. "We have a father?" "Yes, sweetheart. You've always had a father. I couldn't find a way to make him part of our family." "Where has he been?" Emilio asked, his voice small and confused. "He's been living his own life, building his career, not knowing how wonderful you both are." "Did he know about us?" Mateo's question was direct, cutting to the heart of what mattered. "He knew I was pregnant when you were born, but he was young and scared and made some bad choices." "He didn't want us?" The pain in Emilio's voice broke her heart. "I think he was afraid he wouldn't be a good father. Some people run away when they're scared instead of staying to figure things out. But he saved us," Mateo said, trying to reconcile the contradiction. "If he didn't want us, why did he save us?" "Because when he learned you were sick, when he learned you might die, He realized that being your father was more important than being scared. Does he want to meet us now? Emilio asked hopefully. He does. But boys, this decision is up to you. You don't have to meet him if you don't want to. You don't owe him anything just because he donated bone marrow. What's he like? Mateo asked. He's intelligent like you, Emilio. And determined like you, Mateo. He builds companies and helps people, and he has your eyes. What do you think we should do, Mama? Emilio asked. I think you should follow your hearts. If you want to meet him, we'll arrange it. If you don't, that's okay too. The boys looked at each other, having one of their twin conversations that happened without words. We want to meet him, Mateo said finally. But just for a little bit first. To see if we like him. And to see if he likes us, Emilio added. Oh, sweetheart. Camila pulled them both into a hug. He's going to love you. How could he not? The meeting was arranged for the following Saturday at a neutral location, the Children's Museum, where Mateo and Emilio could feel comfortable and Tobias could interact with them naturally, without the pressure of formal introductions. Camila watched from a distance as Tobias approached the boys, who were building an elaborate structure out of large foam blocks. He looked nervous in a way she'd never seen him, his usual confidence replaced by the uncertainty of a man walking into the most important meeting of his life. Excuse me, he said softly, kneeling beside their construction project. I'm Tobias. Are you Mateo and Emilio? Both boys looked up, studying him with the intense curiosity of children meeting someone they'd only imagined. You look like us, Mateo observed with typical directness. I was thinking the same thing about you, Tobias replied, and Camila could hear the emotion in his voice even from across the room. Are you really our father? Emilio asked. I am, and I know that's confusing and probably scary. Why weren't you here before? Mateo's question was blunt but not accusatory, simply seeking information. Because I was scared and made bad choices. I thought work was more important than family, and I was wrong about that. Mama says you donated bone marrow to save us. I did. It was the least I could do after missing so many years of your lives. Did it hurt? Emilio asked with concern. A little, but not as much as knowing I had two amazing sons I'd never met. We wrote you a thank you letter, Mateo said, digging into his backpack. Before we knew you were our father. Want to read it? Tobias accepted the carefully written letter with hands that shook slightly. Thank you. I'd love to read it. As he read their innocent words of gratitude to their anonymous savior, Camila watched his expression change. The corporate mask he'd worn for years finally cracked completely, revealing the man she'd once fallen in love with, vulnerable, genuine, capable of being moved by the simple honesty of children. This is the most beautiful letter I've ever received, he said when he finished reading. Really? Emilio beamed. Really? Would it be okay if I helped you build your structure? I used to be pretty good with blocks. Sure. We're building a castle with a hospital inside, so no one ever has to be sick. That's a wonderful idea. Camila watched for the next hour as Tobias played with his sons, listening to their stories, answering their questions, laughing at their jokes. She saw him learning that Mateo loved soccer and wanted to be an architect, that Emilio read at a high school level and dreamed of becoming a doctor. She saw her boys responding to him with the openness that came naturally to children who'd been raised with love and security. They weren't guarded or resentful. They were curious about this new person who looked like them and seemed genuinely interested in everything they had to say. Are you going to stay this time? Mateo asked as they finished their castle. If you want me to stay. If your mother says it's okay. We want you to stay, Em. Good. Because we have a lot of catching up to do. Yes, we do. And you have to come to my soccer games, Mateo added. And help me with my science projects, Emilio chimed in. And read us stories at bedtime, they said together. I would love to do all of those things, Tobias said, and Camila could see that he meant every word. Later, as they prepared to leave, Tobias approached her hesitantly. Thank you, he said simply. Thank you for raising them to be so extraordinary. Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you for not poisoning them against me when you had every right to. They deserve to make their own choice about you. What about you? Do I get a chance to earn your forgiveness too? Camila was quiet for a moment, watching Mateo and Emilio pack up their things, chattering excitedly about their father and all the things they wanted to show him. Forgiveness isn't something you earn, Tobias. It's something you receive as a gift. And yes, I forgive you. Not because you've earned it, but because holding on to anger was poisoning all of us. And us? Is there a chance for us? I don't know. We're different people now. I'm not the young woman who was willing to sacrifice everything for love. And you're not the young man who was willing to sacrifice love for everything else. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we can build something better this time. Maybe. But first, you need to focus on being the father Matteo and Emilio deserve. Everything else is secondary. Agreed. They're the most important thing now. They always should have been. I know. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for not understanding that sooner. 6 months later, the transformation in their family was remarkable. Tobias had kept his promise, restructuring his entire life around being present for his sons. He attended every soccer game, helped with homework, read bedtime stories, and learned that being a father was both the hardest and most rewarding job he'd ever undertaken. "Dad, can you help me with my science project?" Emilio asked one evening as they sat around the kitchen table in Camila's house. "Dad." The word still sent a thrill through Tobias every time he heard it. "Of course. What are you working on?" "Genetics. I want to understand how bone marrow transplants work and why family members are the best donors." "That's a fascinating topic. Did you know that the reason I was such a good match for you and Matteo is because we share 50% of our DNA? So we're half you and half Mama." "Exactly. You got my eyes and Mama's smile, my stubborn streak and Mama's kind heart. What else did we get from you?" Matteo asked, looking up from his math homework. "Well, let's see. You both got my love of building things, my curiosity about how things work, and apparently my ability to eat an entire pizza by myself." Both boys giggled, a sound that never failed to make Tobias's heart swell with joy. "Dad," Matteo's voice was thoughtful, "are you ever sorry you didn't know us when we were little?" The question hit Tobias in the chest. "Every day, buddy. I missed your first words, your first steps, your first day of school. I'll always regret that. But you're here now," Emilio pointed out with 8-year-old logic. "And we're still little enough for lots of first times." "Like what?" "Like the first time you teach us to drive. And the first time you help us with high school projects. And the first time you walk us down the aisle when we get married." The future stretched out before them, filled with possibilities and promises, and all the moments Tobias had almost missed forever. "You're right. We have a lot of firsts ahead of us." "And Dad," Matteo added, "you don't have to feel bad about the before times. We had a really good life with just Mama. But having you here now makes it even better." Camila, who had been listening from the kitchen, felt tears stream down her face. Her boys, their boys, had somehow learned to hold both love and forgiveness in their hearts, to see their father's transformation not as an erasure of the past, but as a promise for the future. "Speaking of making things better," Tobias said, pulling an envelope from his pocket, "I have something for all of you." "What is it?" both boys asked eagerly. "Legal papers. I'm officially acknowledging paternity and putting both your names on my insurance, my will, everything. You're my sons, legally and officially and forever." "Does that mean you're staying forever?" Emilio asked hopefully. "It means I'm staying forever." "What about Mama?" Matteo asked. "Are you going to marry Mama so we can be a real family?" Tobias looked across the room at Camila, who was drying her hands on a kitchen towel and trying not to cry. "That's up to your Mama. But I hope so. I hope she'll give us all a chance to be the family we should have been from the beginning." Camila joined them at the table, sitting between her sons and looking at the man who had broken her heart and then spent months healing it with patience, consistency, and unconditional love for their children. "What do you think, boys? Should we let Dad stick around permanently?" "Yes," they chorused without hesitation. "Then I guess we're going to be a real family after all." As Tobias reached across the table to take her hand, as their sons cheered and began planning their parents' wedding, Camila marveled at the journey that had brought them here. From a car accident that nearly destroyed everything to a bone marrow donation that saved everything, from denial and anger to acceptance and love. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are also the ones who save us. Sometimes forgiveness looks like giving someone the chance to become who they were always meant to be. And sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about perfect people finding each other. They're about broken people choosing to heal together, one day at a time, building something stronger from the pieces of what was lost. Sometimes our greatest cowardice prepares us for our most courageous moments. Tobias learned that denying your children doesn't make them disappear. It only makes you disappear from their lives. Camila discovered that sometimes the person who hurts us most is also the only one who can save us. Their story teaches us that biology doesn't make you a father, but sacrifice does. What responsibility are you running from? What child needs you to step up and be the parent they deserve? If this story inspired you to choose courage over comfort, show it with a like. Subscribe for more powerful stories about family and redemption, and share this with someone who needs to remember that being a parent is about showing up when it matters most.